Two Sides, Spiteful and Determined. Chapter 3. Memories Will Haunt You. On March 10, 1978, Scott and Beth welcomed a beautiful baby boy into the world. The Bounty family has just gained their third son, Jacob. Scott's dream of having all boys was complete and the Bounty name would live on. That was until Grace came along, then Beth got to live her dream of having a daughter. Jacob grew up in the shadows of his two older brothers. Justin was always the favorite and they couldn't compete with that. Was it because he was super athletic, good-looking, and had an interest in the family business since the first time he could talk? His first words were practically bail and fugitive. The Bounty kids had a lot to live up to and a bright future ahead of them. But no family could ever be perfect. You know what they say, every family has to have at least one problem child, and in this case it started with the battle between Scott and Jacob. Scott, being an only child, had no choice but to carry on the Bounty legacy of being bounty hunters and bail bondsmen. He had no interest in doing bail but loved the adrenaline of doing the chase. He took after his father quite literally. Scott's mother handled everything paperwork-wise while the boys and their crew caught all their jumps. Eventually, the Bounty family got so good at their practice that people jumping bond on them was unheard of. With that being said, they boys had to find action elsewhere. Soon into his career, Scott met Beth and it was love at first sight. As if Scott didn't take after his father enough, he practically met their wives in the same way too. Needless to say, Scott grew up to be a clone of his father, Tim. When Dewey was born, he was a promising clone of Scott, but as he got older he slowly became his own person. He was born with the name Damien, but for some reason the name Dewey just followed him. Where it came from, honestly, it's been so long nobody seems to remember. Like every boy, he wanted to play sports and one day go to the big leagues. It took him a slower time to learn the bonds business, but starting at such a young age was almost a guaranteed future in this. As soon as Justin was old enough to run, he jumped right into the bonds business. As Justin got older, he quickly picked up the ins and outs of the profession, a lot faster than Dewey. Finally, Jacob, expected to follow in the footsteps of the family, quickly turned to the other side. The Bounty family had always been looked at as perfect. The local legends had a big secret that they were keeping from the rest of the world. One thing about the Bounty men is they were born to always be tough and put women first. Beth raised the boys to have that soft side and nurtured them the way a mother would. Scott raised them to have that strong work ethic and have that competitive spirit. Another thing is the Bounties, each and every one of them, had a past. With discipline comes rebellion. Tim Bounty did hard time and met his wife and the mother of his son, Felicia, who helped him get his life back on track. Tim pushed the work ethic and mental toughness so hard that Scott found himself going down the same path as his father. As a parent, you can only do so much until your kids just have to learn the life lessons for themselves. At 16, Scott was in and out of juvenile facilities until he turned 18 and he got scared straight. This was a day that will never be forgotten by the Bounty family. It wasn't until his own dad arrested him and let him do his entire sentence in jail to where he realized he was messing his life up. It was inevitable that all the Bounty men would go down this same path. Eventually they straightened themselves out. It was until one truly let the brokenness win. Once Jacob became a teenager, he started getting into the streets and felt more loved there than by his whole family. Jacob suffered in silence and only let the actions of being bad sense through. It wasn't until they saw him for the last time they realized the battle was bigger than they ever expected. Ever since that day, the memories haunted Scott any chance they got. It seemed like every night Scott was having a nightmare about his poor son. Whoever said healing comes with time certainly had better luck with that. It wasn't until Grace came along that they took the loving aspect of parenting more seriously and slowed down on their careers.